Welcome to the AI Applied podcast. Today on the podcast, we wanted to talk about a really fascinating economic report that just came out from Anthropic. It's called the Anthropic Economic Index Report. They put out this massive document. I think it's it's got 4 chapters in it. And essentially, it is a report that introduces new metrics of AI usage to give you an idea of how Claude is making impact, how these AI tools are going to impact the economy in the future. Connor's been doing a whole bunch of research on this, so he's going to be our foremost expert on this report. And if you're following along on YouTube, we'll be pulling up graphs as well as we talk about this to show some of the concepts and ideas. Some of this stuff is really, really fascinating. The impact of AI on the economy. Take it away, Connor.
I love when Anthropic probably does this almost better than anyone. I think Microsoft does a pretty good job with this too. But this is their 4th economic index report, and essentially, kind of, Jaeden, as you're referring to, they took 2 million conversations with Claude, and this is on the consumer side, it's on the enterprise side, but they're trying to figure out how people are working with AI, and to a certain extent, some of the headlines are just kind of exactly what you'd expect, right? So it's coding dominates usage. And somewhere in that report, Jaeden, they have this really cool graph. I don't have it in front of me, but it's like a word cloud of how people are using it. And you can kind of see how much coders are using it and also how much students are using it. You see coursework and stuff like that, but you also see developers and all that sort of stuff. So there's just some cool things there. So obviously coding is dominating this. Another big headline from this, and I'm going to get to the headline that I found most exciting in 1 second here. It was buried on page 39. But it's AI adoption is spreading faster than blah, blah, blah. Productivity gains could add 1 to 2 percentage points to the annual labor growth, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Jaeden, here's the part that I think is so interesting and why I think it changes how we work and how we should work. So as you know, what I do, I work with big enterprise, and we're sort of training big companies at scale, 10, 15,000 person companies and things like that, right? And essentially, we try to do it differently. We do it, this is behavioral-based system. But what I'm talking to people about all the time, even almost every single day of the week these days, is often people say, look, find your use cases, talk to it like a person, and what are the mundane things in your world that you just wish you could automate, get off your plate? And we sort of push back on that, and we kind of say, listen, yes, that's true. But if you're doing that, all you're doing is sort of speeding up something that maybe you're getting better at already. In other words, the reason that I don't love the use case of an AI note taker or something like that is all you've essentially done is replace a human note taker with an AI note taker. You're never going to differentiate yourself based on that. If you really want to differentiate yourself in your job and really stand out, the statistic I want to read to you here that was buried on page 39 is that what they're finding is that with simple tasks, let's call it high school level knowledge, right? There's a 9x speed up in that. But with complex tasks, let's call it college degree, there's a 12x speed up. Okay. So in other words, AI helps more on the hard stuff than the easy stuff. Now, a lot of companies I work with have a lot of people who are sort of doing slightly rote tasks. And they sometimes push back and they're right, but my job is just this. I'm no. The way that you want to reinvent your world, and the way that you want to protect your job more than anything else, and I talked about this a little bit in the masterclass that I did that was released back in November, is you want to help your leaders see how work gets reinvented from your standpoint. Because what leaders need, guys, more than anything else, is they don't need you just doing your tasks a little faster. Nobody's going to notice that. What leaders notice is, hey, Jaeden's over there on the 6th floor, and he's just reinvented the way that his team does work. That's the complexity of these tasks. That's where Claude can really actually help, and AI can really help, right? So again, we keep telling people, find the boring, find the mundane. But the real edge here is punching above your weight, right? It's the strategic analysis. It's synthesizing really complicated information. It's building stuff that would normally take days. That's what gets you noticed. So I want to take all this in this AI applied idea and say, well, what can we learn from this? And Jaeden, what I would say that we can learn that I think is most exciting is, if AI is really, really good at the complex stuff, of course it's good at the easy stuff. But imagine if it's even better at the complex stuff. You want to stand out at work. You want to keep your job. You want to get a job. You want to reinvent your work by saying to your superiors, your boss, whatever it is, hey, I'm not just doing this work faster. I've reinvented how this would work. And that's what AI does. And that's what those charts show me. That's what's exciting to me.
100%. Okay, here's one interesting takeaway that I got from this report. And it is this concept of augmentation versus automation.
Mhm.
One thing that they said is that, once again, in this report and the last one that they did, is that augmentation right now is outweighing automation for users how they're using Claude, which means that more people are using Claude in a way where they're working on something and it's helping support them, it's giving them ideas versus people that have used it and it's just automating a task and completely doing it for them. And I think this is an important concept to think about right now. A lot of people, I don't know, like I definitely fall prey to this where like my YouTube algorithm is like, check out this N8N automation that completely replaces a marketing person, and like with these 57 different interconnected AI steps linked together, just no one needs to ever send an email ever again or send a sales pitch or like whatever, right? So like I see a lot of those and it's like, in reality though, I think, well, okay, so I think a couple different things are happening here. Number one, like don't like be hard on yourself if you haven't automated everything that you do in your entire life. Number
Amen.
two, though, do start thinking about how AI can augment the things that you do. And the third thing is I actually think that their analytics are not 100% accurate, maybe 100% accurate portrayal of that, and I'll give you my reason why. So I do think there is actually maybe a little bit more automation than they're letting on to. But it's not the end of the world. Start figuring out your systems, start figuring out how to augment and automate things. But here's one interesting thing. They said that augmentation is 52% of what's being done with Claude and that automation is 45%. That's not that big of a difference. That's still
Mhm,
almost 50
mhm.
50 in my books. Like we're getting pretty close there, like 52%. But here's why I think it's actually skewed is because right now, if you're building an automation system, you need AI to augment how you build the system. So I feel like there's a lot of people right now building systems and we're like figuring out what can Claude do? Like how much of this task can it accomplish? You ask it a task, you refine your prompt, you're kind of working on it. And once you kind of have a certain element of an automation perfected, you will then like take that prompt and put it into your automation. But I think that people are working on trying to automate things, working on trying to get the AI to do more and more for them. It takes a lot of experimentation, but all of that experimentation is going to get lumped into the bucket of augmentation because you're just iteratively chatting with it and working on things versus just APIs like automating the whole task. So, anyways, I think that's why the statistics might be a little bit skewed. People are definitely doing more augmentation right now, but maybe they're augmenting, figuring out how to automate things. So, food for thought on that data point. If you're interested in doing a lot of the actual automation, one of the number one things I can recommend for accomplishing this that I've just been like absolutely obsessed with in the last week is lovable.dev,
Mhm,
a
mhm.
website where you can explain any sort of tool you'd like to build and it will do it for you. And when I say tool, like I recently built a tool, it's like basically useful for myself. I've tried to make it useful for other people. It's podcaststudio.com. This isn't a plug since it's not really even a product. But if you want to look at the website, you could see it. Essentially, what I've built in there for myself is a way for me. I have a whole process. When I upload a podcast, I like upload the podcast. I have to go make a title and a description. I usually use AI to help me do that. Anyways, there's all these different steps to it. So I built an automation, you could say, which uses Claude for a whole bunch of pieces of this, where I'll essentially upload one MP3 file. It uses an AI model to transcribe the MP3 file and put timestamps in it. It then uses the AI to look at that transcript, make a title, make a description with AI automatically. It then looks at the timestamps and makes chapters with linkable timestamps inside of them. And then I even have a thing where, like, if I mention like a product, if I'm like, hey, go check out, if I'm interviewing someone and I'm like, hey, make sure to go look at their LinkedIn and go check out their website, it will go find links and it will put like mentioned resources into there. So all I have to do is upload the MP3 file. It fills all of that out. And this is all built with Lovable though. So it and then I think even for mine, I'm like, hey, and then go enhance the audio. So it like does all this like audio compression and audio leveling, like stuff automatically and fixes it up. There's like 100 other features that are like exclusively useful to me. And I went and built a full software just to do that. But for like a couple days of work and a couple $100, I now save myself, hours of work every single week. So, anyways, I think we're going to get more of that where people are building these like personal softwares that automate things. And if you're interested in it, that's how I recommend going about doing it. But there's also a lot of things where you're just chatting with it and getting some augmentation, getting benefits.
Yeah, and I think it's a good distinction, right? Because it's not just one or the other. Sometimes we're like, well, does it do this or does it do that? It does both. I guess the And I love hearing about how you vibe code stuff, Jaden. I'm actually just getting into that. I just opened my first Lovable account after
Oh,
a podcast
amazing.
we did a little while ago. Uh, and it's funny because I could never think of anything to vibe code, but I'm in like this book club, for example, here in my town in Connecticut, and with all these, it's like a men's book club kind of thing. And I'm like,
Oh,
and it's always everything's done over text, and people are like, well, when can you meet and when can we meet? It's like 25 guys, and I'm
oh
like, well,
man.
could we just do this where it's sort of like it gives people almost like a doodle, but like that? So I started to build that. I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. So I sometimes fall into my own trap of like, well, what should I use this for? But I do think like ultimately, when we think about like what Anthropic is saying in this report, it's whatever it takes. Like AI essentially is speed to quality. Do you know what I mean? Meaning like it just speeds up the time that you get to quality. And sometimes that quality ceiling is like really, really raised. I just think so often the way people are using AI, Jaden, and I think you'd probably agree too, is just like the most basic fundamental things, right? The analogy I use sometimes is if you kind of got exposed to electricity, 98% of the population would probably just like have, heat and light bulbs. Do you know what I mean? Like, whereas the
Mhm.
real kind of people who are like, well, what if I could build like a sewing machine or an automatic coffee pot or whatever? And that second group of people are the people who are thinking like, well, what do I actually need to do? Not what electricity can do. What do I need to do? And I think that's the same with AI. It's like, well, gosh, I really need to do this deep thinking. I think AI is phenomenal at that. And this is where I think Anthropic and OpenAI and Gemini and everybody else are trying to push people. It's like, don't just think about sort of like automating these tasks. Think about instead, like, how is this actually going to change how you work on the big thinking stuff? And most importantly, and this is what I would end on, is when you want to stand out at work, this is how you stand out, Jaden. It's not that you finished your tasks an hour earlier than everybody else. Your boss is not going to care. What
Yep.
your boss wants to see, I guarantee, is people who come in and transform how that work is done, and then they can make that repeatable for people around them. So that's how I would see this, Jaden. I'm super excited about when these reports come out, just sort of like what they mean, trying to sort of like paint a picture of that. I know we're at time. Let me just sort of like also say, guys, if you have not tried out AIbox.ai, it's absolutely phenomenal. Jaden's product, it's absolutely taking off. It was in development forever. Jaden has some really cool things coming out, but essentially, like for 19 bucks a month, you're doing what I do every day, which is compare answers off models. It also allows you to build workflows. So as Jaden's talking about vibe coding, everything else, this is an amazing place to start playing around with that at a very, very low entry point and just start changing how you code. This is the future of agents, guys. It's an easy entry point. Check it out. And lastly, guys, ratings and reviews. Yeah, if you haven't done it, can you take 2 seconds now? Just take 2 seconds. 2 seconds. It's all we need. We'd be so grateful. We're trying to hit a very specific number, and it's super helpful for us. If you haven't done that yet, we'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, we will see you on the next episode.